Second-year big Kai Jones may be the best athlete in the 2021 NBA draft, and he has made a real case for himself to be the best prospect out of the University of Texas. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break him down. Despite only picking up organized basketball at 15 years old, Kai Jones has grown into one of the most interesting bigs in the 2021 draft. Jones mostly comes off the bench for Texas and plays just about 22 minutes per game, but he has been excellent in his sophomore season. The big man from the Bahamas currently comes in at 6'10", 218 pounds. Jones is a pogo stick athlete who plays above the rim with ease and has shown some tantalizing flashes of being able to handle and shoot the ball. Let's start with the skills that guarantee Kai Jones has a surefire NBA future. There will always be a role for Jones in the league as a big that can play above the rim or near the basket and finish. His bounciness and sheer athleticism make him an easy fit on any team. Toss the ball up in Jones's general vicinity and things will happen. Jones will also be able to act as a rim runner or roller. If Jones gets downhill, good luck to you, and this includes pick and roll situations. It's easy to imagine Jones as one of the NBA's most effective rollers in the future. Run a pick and roll in which you have Jones diving to the basket, and you're pretty much guaranteed a good look on that possession. Once he gets the ball, Jones is great at being patient and then finishing. Generally speaking though, something good will come if you just put Jones at the basket. Like I said, he can catch lobs, roll hard, or get you buckets in transition, but Jones is also hard to stop out of the dunker spot. Jones is a difference maker in these areas of the floor, as Texas doesn't ask him to do much and he is very good at what he is required to do. Either he catches the ball and finishes on you, or he gets fouled going up. I will say though that one area of improvement for Jones at the rim is his hands. There are times where he will fumble the ball or won't fully catch it, which means that he isn't taking advantage of all the easy shots he gets. This is not a major concern and Jones can definitely improve, but ideally, you want your big to catch absolutely everything that comes at him. Now that we know what would make Jones a seamless cog at the NBA level, let's get into what makes him different. You won't find many bigs who attack closeouts the way that Jones does. He is very comfortable putting the ball on the floor for one or two dribbles and applying pressure on the opposing basket. We know how dangerous Jones can be when he gets close to the rim, so that makes this part of his skill set very intriguing. He finishes 72% of his closed twos, and here he takes on Indiana's Tracy Jackson Davis off the dribble and flushes it. This brings me to my next point. Jones is extremely elastic, and that's the most apt description I could think of. Despite being 6'10", Jones is really good at manipulating and contorting his body on drives to the rim. Even when Jones cannot finish, the way that he changes directions and tempo is incredibly unique. Watch here how Jones tiptoes his way between 3 Oklahoma State defenders and caps it off with a thunderous slam dunk. There are not many bigs who have this ability in their arsenals, and you can't help but be intrigued. Of course, Jones is also helped out by his insane vertical pop. Even when he catches the ball at a standstill, Jones is able to load up and elevate in a moment's notice. Jones's vertical athleticism also helps him out in the rebounding department. Jones only gets 5 boards per game, but he's actually a decent rebounder. We have to keep in mind that he plays most of his minutes for Texas at the 4, rather than at the 5. Jones finds success on the offensive boards, getting about 2 per game. His burst off the floor and long arms mean that Jones creates second chance opportunities for his team. This also means that Jones is a constant tip dunk threat. It doesn't always work out, but I guarantee you that Jones will have at least one huge putback slam over someone when he makes it to the NBA. The one tangible weakness that Jones has around the basket is that he cannot do much in the post. Ask Jones to create his own offense in the low block, and he won't be able to give you what you need, but to be honest, I don't think he's that type of big. You have to be really good to demand constant post-ups in the NBA anyways, and either way, those are not the types of shots you want from Jones. The shots you want are either the ones I outlined earlier, assisted right at the basket, or from beyond the arc. Jones is a surprisingly capable perimeter shooter, having made about 37% of his threes so far this season. Jones only takes about 1 3 per contest, but the signs are honestly encouraging. I understand that there might be some apprehension about Jones's outside shot, which is logical. His form is inconsistent, the arc he gets varies from shot to shot, and his mechanics are not the prettiest. But where there is smoke, there must be fire. Even if he has some flaws and he's only made 11 threes this season, you see some stretch potential with Jones, which is more than you could say about Jackson Hayes or Jared Allen, for instance. But even though I'm encouraged, I don't want to ignore the reality of the situation. For all the flashes, Jones remains a low-volume perimeter shooter. His footwork is messy, he banks in some of his makes, and he does not have a fast release. Jones is also completely unreliable pulling up off the dribble from deep, although some, including myself, are somewhat optimistic because he at least tries these shots. However, it is definitely possible that Jones is still years away from being able to act as a stretch big. On that note, there are 2 areas of improvement for Jones from the perimeter. The first, like I touched on, is his footwork. This doesn't only go for when he is shooting, but also when he is catching the ball. Jones travels more than he should, and I think that it might be because of the wide base he wants to get to when he shoots. Something else is that Jones has only shot 30 triples this year, and that number should probably be more. I want to see Jones hesitate less when he receives the ball in a position to pull up from beyond the arc. Just let it fly without fear and worry about the rest later. Maybe this will come when he improves his overall shot, but there are definitely times when Jones passes up a good look from deep in rhythm to do something more tentative instead. Jones is also incredibly interesting on defense, starting with his ability to guard down positions. The Longhorns' big is really mobile and nimble at his size. Jones has no problem checking smaller attackers, and it's not just that he doesn't mind doing it, Jones is pretty good at it. Texas does not mind having him on non-bigs who are on paper quicker and more skillful than Jones. Of course, that is only on paper. Jones is not the type of big who never wants to venture outside the paint. In this respect, he can play outside in, so to speak, going out to the perimeter to guard and staying with drives as they attack the basket. At times, this leads to some big blocks. Jones genuinely frustrates guards and wings. Here, against Butler's Davion Mitchell, you have to consider that Mitchell is really explosive in his own right, but Jones completely stifles him and makes him pass the ball off. Jones is very capable of getting down in a stance with his hips low to the ground and using his long arms and active hands to harass the attacker. He is great at swiping at the ball at the right moment to poke it away, such as here. Another example is here, when Jones is switched onto Oklahoma's Austin Reeves. Reeves is having a very good season, but Jones embraces the challenge and steals the ball from the Sooners guard. It was also fascinating to watch Jones against Cade Cunningham. Cunningham is no doubt a contender for first overall pick come this summer, but Jones really stressed him out and got the best of him on multiple occasions. Jones regularly bothered Cunningham. He got into him, made him uncomfortable, and stayed with him on everything. Predictably, and given his physical tools, Jones can also act as a rim protector. If he's able to get off the floor in a heartbeat for dunks, he can also do the same for blocks and contests. Simply put, it's tough both to dribble past Jones and shoot over Jones. That alone gives him more defensive potential than a lot of his peers in this draft class. If everything clicks, then the options with Jones on D are limitless. But Jones also has some defensive shortcomings. First, he needs to keep getting stronger. Jones is too skinny at not even 220 pounds to play the 5 in the NBA. Right now, attackers are able to get into Jones's chest and finish through him. That strength disadvantage nullifies his rim protection. That happens here, for example, as Jackson Davis goes right through Jones and gets the and one. Jones also needs to be more robust on the glass, particularly when it comes to conceding offensive rebounds. Jones can get pushed around on the boards. He will often give up weight and strength, which means that it is not easy for him to box people out. In turn, this gives his opponents more opportunities at the basket and denies Texas fast break chances, for example. Certainly, there are also times where one notices just how new Jones is to basketball as a whole. On one hand, it might give him more upside. On the other, it might take him more time to get ready, especially in the NBA. Jones is prone to being out of position. He sometimes doesn't take up the right spots on the court, which again means that he cannot make the right defensive plays. This can pop up when he's caught ball watching or simply if he's a second late rotating. Things that are second nature to those who have played basketball for a much longer time are not yet instinctual to Jones, and you have to hope that he will continue to pick things up quickly. So the instant appeal with Kai Jones, in my opinion, is that he has a high floor and a high ceiling. His floor is what I mentioned early in the video. Basically, he can be a rim running, above the rim big, who can catch lobs, get rebounds, clean up around the basket, and just get easy points in a productive way using his athleticism. As for his ceiling, well, I think that we have to look at Jones' shot selection, at the flashes that he has shown shooting the ball from outside as well as from the free throw line, some of the passing that he has shown, which I didn't really get into in the video, but he has been able to show a little bit of passing off some of the drives that he does, which of course brings me to that. There are not many bigs in this draft class, or really that I can remember in the last few years, that attack closeouts with the dexterity that Jones offers. Jones is such an incredible athlete who can attack closeouts on a moment's notice, who can rise up for dunks in a moment's notice as well, and who can really make plays putting the ball on the floor. If everything goes according to plan, then I think that Kai Jones will be able to show off a lot more skill at the NBA level than what he has displayed at the University of Texas so far. And to be honest, I think that part of that is just because of Texas' stacked roster. Jones has to share the ball and the floor a lot with either Greg Brown or Jericho Sims, and all three of them are probably best at the 5. However, once Jones is able to act as the lone big on an NBA floor with that type of spacing, with that type of playmaking, then his offensive game, I believe, will really come alive in pick and roll, in catch and shoot hopefully, and just generally around the floor. That applies defensively too, where I think that Jones eventually has the potential to be a guy who guards 1 through 5. His lateral quickness, his mobility, his wingspan, and his willingness and effort level all project really well on that end of the floor. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment below telling me what you think of Kai Jones, and if you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed the channel, please subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.